Most of you all know that I worked as a therapist for about 15 years, and every now and then I'll preach a sermon that is everything that I learned about a certain topic while being a therapist for 15 years and having to sit there quietly and go, while gathering bits of information. So now it's like they're in a bag and I'm just going to dump them all out as part of this sermon. This is about anger. So most of the major religions have suggestions about how to handle anger. The Dalai Lama, I'm sure, is right, because every time I fight against something that's taught by Buddhism, I end up going, oh, they're right. But he says, anger is just an emotion, and you should just let it pass like a cloud across the sun. And I think, from not the best part of myself, I just want to put him in a room with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old for a week, sleep deprived and fighting a cold, and then we'll talk. But I'm sure he's right. Meanwhile, the Hebrew scriptures are full of anger. God gets angry, the people get angry. Job is shaking his fist at God. Job is the oldest book that we have in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures. And in it, this man has terrible things happen to him because God let them. And because of a bet with Satan. We won't get into that. So he's shaking his fist at God, and he's mad, and his friends come around with all the explanations that people still give for when you're having suffering. And one of the things that they say is, Job, man, you probably shouldn't be so mad at God, because he's going to really hurt you worse. And Job says, no, God and I are in a relationship, and I can get mad. I have earned my right to be mad at God because this isn't correct. And then later on in the book, when God actually comes into the conversation, he says to the friends, you guys are a bunch of morons, and you're wrong. And Job was right. It's not bad to be mad. And then he said, Job, here's my answer to you and your suffering. I'm God, and you're not. But it's a lot more poetic and gorgeous than that. Are you a friend of the water-spurting whale? Oh, it's wonderful. So there's a lot of anger in the Hebrew scriptures. Nothing wrong with it. It's a faithful response to a relationship. The Christian scriptures say, be angry but do not sin. So, okay, they don't say, don't be angry, be sweet, which is what a lot of people were taught that they said, but they don't. Be angry, but don't sin. So you're supposed to take your anger, and how you behave with it is what you're responsible for, because you can't just not be angry. That doesn't work. It's a human reaction. It's chemistry. It's going to happen. So anger is a signal. It's a signal that something's wrong. Like pain is a signal that something's wrong. Guilt is a signal that you think you did something wrong. Anger is a signal that something is amiss, that maybe your boundaries were violated, or somebody has intruded upon you, or you're not getting your way, which is simplest, or that too much is being asked of you or taken from you, or that your rights are not being respected, or that you're being confined, or you're being colonized, which means that somebody moves in on you and starts telling you how it is. Anger is meant to move you out of a painful situation into a situation that's better. It's meant to motivate you so you don't just sit and stew in a painful situation forever. It's supposed to give you some fierceness. Anger can also be on behalf of other people. You see other people being treated unfairly, or you start beginning to see things the way they are. If you're a white person, you start seeing how the whole system is rigged so that you come out on top. and you get angry because you feel like you should be able to fix it, but you can't, and you feel like people are blaming you for it, but it was there before you were born, and you're supposed to dismantle it because people of color don't have to dismantle it. They're not the ones that built it. So there's anger on behalf of the lead in the water in Flint and the lead in the water everywhere, and you just feel like, I am going to explode with anger in these situations. So anger sometimes doesn't mean that you're being violated. It just means somebody else is being violated, and you are furious because it's so wrong. So there are lots of different styles of anger. Some people are very cool and logical when they're angry, and they'll just tell you the problem, and then they will explain to you what you did wrong and how you could do better if only you had the character. And then there are people who give you the silent treatment when they're angry. And then there are people who are really righteous in their anger. And then there are people who say, oh no, everything's fine. Oh no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And they have a great big sack and they're sticking it all in the sack. And then one day, when you don't clean the top of the refrigerator or something, they'll just take the sack and just dump it out all over you. And so the fight is huge, but it's not about what it purports to be about. See what I'm saying? So some people's anger is very verbal. Some people's is physical. Some people punch walls and have to go to the emergency room. You are not superior if you stay calm. You are not inferior if you are the expressive one. Staying calm is often a sign that you are the one who has the power. So you can stay calm for 100 years because the status quo is on your side. If nothing changes, you come out on top. So you can say, oh, dear, you are so emotional. You're so upset. But sometimes a person who perceives themselves as powerless doesn't have anything to do but jump up and down and scream and set things on fire. Because when they're reasonable, they just are ignored or dismissed. So people have lots of different styles and they're doing what they need to do. Unless they're Hitler, again, we always have to come to this point where you go, the extremes are the extremes. We're going to talk about the people in the middle. People that are kind of like the people here. So some people just vent. And venting is okay, but it's a way of staying where you are. You just vent every now and then. It's like letting off steam. So you have partners and they're irritated with each other, kind of a low-level chronic irritation, like a lot of long-term partners get. And one of them calls her mom once a week and just complains. Now this is called a triangle, and it's a good way to stay stuck and nothing changes because there's a third person that you just complain to and let off steam. That's just venting, and venting is a way to stay stuck. There are some people who are in a business or people who are in a church, say, and things aren't going the way they want, and they just kind of like grump in the hallway or in the parking lot. And I served another church long ago and far away where this guy was bad to just kvetch in the hallway. His name was Jerry, and one time I was in my office and he was complaining in the hallway to somebody about something that he could have come to me about and we would have fixed it right then. But he was like, I don't understand why, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I just raised my voice a little and went, Jerry, complaining in the hallway is not the way to get things changed. That didn't fix it, by the way. I'm not coming out as the hero of this story. When you're angry, things need to change. Otherwise, it's corrosive. And you can just become a curmudgeon-y person like that guy up on the hill in the Japanese folktale. Or you can become a lover of leaving, as Rumi said so beautifully in our first round hymn. You're a lover of leaving. Like when you get mad, you just quit, go away. Like, oh, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not dealing with you. So a lot of people are lovers of leaving. That's one way to handle anger. Couples, I spent so many years as a couples counselor, and I honor people who attempt relationships because it's difficult. And sometimes you have fights about things, money, children, family, and sex. There are a lot of things people fight about. But most of the time, the ones that are the really stuck fights, the ones where you just have the same conversation over and over and over and over again till you can just write it out. I'm going to say this, then they're going to say that, then I'm going to say this, and they're going to say that. And you know how it's going to go. It's kind of a hopeless feeling. That stuckness, usually if you open it up, often you can't do it yourself. You need a third person, a trusted friend or a professional. If you open it up, the fight is about, do you really love me? Do you value me? Do you see me? And if someone feels not loved or not valued or not seen, they're going to fight about a lot of other stuff that's not that. Do you know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's because they're not being seen, in which case that's a problem, and we could see if it can be fixed. So the root of a lot of distress in families is, do you know me? Do you value me? Do you love me? One of the things that's helpful when you're angry, because most anger statements are statements about somebody else. My children won't do this, my parents won't do that, my partner won't blah, blah, blah. One of the helpful questions that helps move things is, what portion of this anger is anger at myself? Not a very comfortable question, but sometimes there are some answers, and that part of the anger is anger at you. And then once you've figured out what part of the anger is anger at yourself, then you've got something to work with, because you can do something about that usually. It's hard, but it's a heck of a lot easier, although less fun, than trying to change somebody else. And sometimes I was mystified because both members of the couple would say that they were being controlled. I didn't know if she feels controlled and he feels controlled, or he feels controlled and he feels controlled, because homosexual relationships are just like heterosexual relationships, mostly. How can both of them be the controlling one? And who's doing all the controlling? And is part of the controlling in here? Because I would see sometimes people make rules that weren't there. And I would sometimes see people almost like lay their head on the ground and pick up the other person's foot and put it on their neck. And then go, his foot's on my neck. And he'd be like, I see that it is, but I didn't do it on purpose. I don't know what happened. So a lot of the times it's something that we're doing, but it's hard to see that. A lot of people, a lot of us, I'll say, have old rage. Old rage that just sits there on your pillow like an ancient teddy bear with glowing eyes and no fur. Just looking at you. And you don't know what it's about, but you're scared to look at it, because if you did, you worry that you would explode. I had a client one time who would not take a deep breath and would not be quiet for 3 minutes. I would just say, let's just take a deep breath for a little while and feel this. She would go, no. Mm-mm. I am not taking a deep breath, and I'm not being quiet for 3 minutes, because if I take a deep breath and if I am quiet, then I will start to think, and if I start to think, I might start to feel, and if I started to feel, I would feel who knows what, and once I started to feel the who knows what, it would devour my whole life. Okay, we won't be quiet. You just let me know when you feel ready, which was never. It's okay. Defenses are there for a reason, my friends. So if people are that scared of their anger, makes me want to take a look. Makes me want to say, okay, well, let's just look at this in a safe environment, and let's just try to name it, because if you can name it, then you have a little bit more chance of having a relationship with it. And if it's not just so much a formless monster going, if it's, oh, this is anger at such and such, and this is anger because such and such, and this is because I made this mistake. And anyway, then you can start having a relationship with it, and then you can do something. I want to quote Clarissa Pinkola Estes to you again. She's a Jungian analyst who I think has a lot of wisdom. She's a storyteller. And she says, take your old rage out to coffee. She says, sit down with it, have a cup of coffee, sit the red-eyed teddy bear with no hair in the other chair, and ask it what it's doing in your life. Talk to it about what it's all about. What does it want? What does it need? Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you can just stop for a moment and have a conversation with it. She says your anger is heat, and it's there in order to make change, like cooking. She says your rage can either burn the house down or you can cook with it. Now, from what I understand, cooking is like magic. I don't do it, but I know people who do. And you take various elements, which are themselves, and you put them together in a cauldron, and you add fire, and the things transform into something else, like soup or jambalaya. And it's something different from what it started as, because magic has happened. Transmogrification has happened. And so your anger can be like that, where you take this person and this situation and that feeling and this stuck place, and you add the heat of your anger and the motivation to move things along, and suddenly you might be able to see, oh, here's what I need to do. I need to withdraw from that person until they start behaving correctly. I need to tell this person that I will no longer speak to them about this certain subject. I will tell that person, you may not speak to me that way. I will tell my boss, I am happy to have criticism, but you may not humiliate me in front of our clients. Whatever boundaries you need to draw, the anger helps you feel fierce enough to do it, gives you energy, gives you fire to cook with. So, be angry when it's time. If you see injustice happening and you feel angry about it, which most of us do, if you see people saying things which horrify you, and they are not alone, there are many people agreeing with them, and you feel angry, my thought is you do what you can do, and you understand that there are other people who will do what they can do, and for you to stay angry about something about which you can do nothing is not helping that situation, and it is hurting you. Does that make sense? And so you are supposed to add to the joy in the world by enjoying the things in your life that bring you joy. And you are supposed to do what you can about the situations which are unjust or unfair. You're supposed to raise money and write checks and wear your yellow t-shirt and go to visit the people in the detention center, and you're supposed to speak the truth that you have to speak, and you're supposed to just understand that speaking is never going to change the mind of someone who disagrees with you, but you do it anyway because it's strengthening for you, and you vote. Don't we? Yes. Because that is the key. You cannot stay angry all the time. It is not good for you. We must be careful with our anger. Not suppress it, because that doesn't really help, but express it and then look at it and see what's to be done. What can be changed? And it'll make a difference. You are wise, and you are here to make a difference, and may it be so.